Like they advertised one match by crashing a car into one of the wrestlers. Not a total victory of Russia, which now we're seeing. He goes on.
Gigantic bag of flaccid dicks. Sorry, continue.
Which, when you open them up, you find out that they're all cockroaches inside.
Yeah. No, I don't know if anybody else is ever going to laugh this hard at anything we say.
We can actually both look out my window right now and see some very pretty yellow flowers that I'm going to be eradicating. Is a Geek History of Time,
where we connect nerdery to the real world. I'm Ed Blaylock, a world history teacher and part-time English teacher in Northern California, with a 2-year-old son who I'm trying very hard not to wake up while we record this, since his bedroom is immediately upstairs from where I'm recording. So if my vocal level seems a little bit more subdued than normal, that's the reason. I promise I'll try not to wind up sounding like Dan the Man Levitan too often. How about you?
I'm Damian Harmony. I am a Latin teacher and part-time world history teacher up here in Northern California. Father to an almost 8-year-old and a 10-year-old, one of whom is building the Milano in Legos, Star-Lord's ship. The other of whom, my daughter, saying, "Oh, you're making a cookie."
All right.
Because she's getting puns. So they're both asleep above me, but they stay down pretty well because they're not 2. So, yeah. All right. So when last we left it, we talked about the Twilight Zone and how it had every possible cultural connection to social anxiety as a society, not the disorder. Existential dread. And a sense, a overdeveloped sense that the world should be orderly, and the reaction against the fact that it's not, as well as a institutional level of paranoia. It keeps popping up during those times.
Yeah, and I'm going to add something else. Mm-hmm. When circumstances in society become surreal. The surrealism of the show makes an appearance.
That's a really good point.
Because I mean, I can only speak secondhand to what life felt like in the early '60s, but I cannot imagine that it wasn't freaking weird to see the stuff going on that was going on in the news. To have that sense of the widening gyre kind of thing going on.
Well, I would say that you even have this sense in the late 50s, and it starts to bubble in, and then in the mid 60s it absolutely happens because Arlo Guthrie hits Alice's Restaurant. And it is an issue of common sense versus authority. Those two shouldn't be in opposition to each other, but they are. And then they are again in the 80s, and then they are again in the early 2000s. Like, hey, we just got attacked. We should maybe take a look at this. The whole world is actually marching in support of us. Nope, go to Disneyland. Okay.
What?
Are you what? Yeah, go to Disneyland. It'll be good. All right. That's an option too. There's common sense versus authority.
Not what I was thinking I was going to get told to do, but
right.
Okay.
So then, in 2019, 20 years later almost, Twilight Zone pops up again. Jordan Peele, now famous for his direction of horror films, spearheads the effort. And once again, the country is collectively facing an existential threat. This time, it's not even particularly from without, but the constitutional crises that this presidency has brought about. Here's a small list, short list, highlights, starting in 2017. I've just got line items here. Facebook aired a kidnapping and a torturing on their live channel. Donald Trump was inaugurated. Several separate intelligence agencies confirmed, in fact, that yes, Russia, under Putin's specific orders, carried out a cyber attack to make the election go Trump's way. And nothing happened.
Question real
42.
fast before we get very
sure.
much farther into what is clearly going to be a litany.
Yes.
Is this all in chronological order of like when it showed up in the headlines or?
Yeah, in terms of the months that it occurred, yes.
Okay, all right, understood. Carry on.
So we are in mid-January.
Yeah.
Trump's first press conference as president, and he immediately goes after the media for reporting the truth about him, which he immediately calls dishonest. Trump then goes on a executive order stampede, reversing a ton of policies that are supporting conservation, minority rights, science, etc. He also specifically bans employees from posting on social media as he's tweeting away. He also starts his wall. Carolyn Adams admits that she lied about Emmett Till. Nothing happens. Trump bans Syrian refugees by executive order, as well as many other countries who have Muslim majority. He leaves certain ones out with which he has financial ties.
Saudi Arabia.
If only there was something that had happened in the previous episode where we mentioned, but they've never really been a problem.
No, the Saudis. No, they've never sponsored anything.
Nope.
Never been the source of any ideological movement or anything that's ever been a threat in any way. I can't keep going. My God. All right, go ahead.
He appointed his first Supreme Court justice to the court, which had been vacant for nearly a year, and nothing happened. That's just January. Here's some other highlights. Trump sets even more sanctions against Iran. He also starts rolling back the Dodd-Frank reforms. Betsy DeVos gets confirmed 51-50 as Secretary of Education. And if ever there was a phrase to really just highlight how batshit crazy all this is, Betsy DeVos, 51-50.
She needs to be 51-50'd.
Yeah, no kidding. Well, and here's the best
with
part.
a table leg.
Her brother is Eric Prince, the guy who runs Blackwater, who is now being talked about as being in charge of Afghanistan under a private army, and he's talked about as, in Trump circles, they talk about him being a viceroy of some sort. Let's see. Trump rolls back even more regulations on fossil fuel production. The U.S. military launches Tomahawk missiles into Syria. Trump orders the dropping of a MOAB, the mother of all bombs, in Afghanistan. Yep. That's been going on since the last time the Twilight Zone was renewed, Afghanistan. But he wanted to drop the biggest bomb yet. Protests all over the country. Clashes start up between pro-Trump forces and protesters. Another Facebook Live shooting. The first Easter at the White House under Trump with a rambling speech about military budgeting. Trump fires
in front of a bunch of kids who were there for the egg roll.
Yeah, explaining to them, that they really made the White House look prettier, and also bought more planes. Trump fired James Comey from the FBI because her emails. Trump shares classified information with Russia. There's an anti-Muslim stabbing on the train in Portland, killing 2 and injuring a 3rd. Comey testifies to Congress that Trump pressured him into dropping the investigation into Michael Flynn, and nobody did anything.
Yep.
There's a huge heat wave to the point where over 90 planes get grounded. Spicer resigns as the press secretary. Trump tweeted that he had complete power to pardon people currently under investigation for their role in 2016 Russian election meddling. He then gave a bizarre speech at the Boy Scouts conference and got them to boo Obama, and nobody did anything. He banned transgender folks from serving in the military via tweet. Transcripts of several conversations show Trump to be begging foreign leaders to present a different image because he wants to look strong. Unite the right. Nazis marched in our street in Charlottesville and kill Heather Heyer. And Trump said they were very fine people and fabricated that there's something called the alt-left, and he demonized Antifa. The president stared into the eclipse and Fox News reported it as the most powerful thing a president has ever done.
Wait, stop. Sorry.
Yes.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Sorry.
I
No.
knew I'd crack you.
No, wait.
I knew I'd crack
No,
you.
hold on. You're kidding.
No.
Okay. All the rest of that just gets a litany of pained grunts and sighing. But okay. Because you said, he stared into the eclipse. And of course, I wanted to interject, well, aren't we all really at this point? but I knew that there was going to be more coming, and I didn't want to break your flow. and then you share that, and I realized that, oh my God, it was that long ago that Fox News stopped trying to be anything other than the
propaganda
Trumpite
arm. Yeah.
It's Trumpite Pravda.
Oh yeah.
Or no, you know what? No. Pravda was a government arm of propaganda. But that's some straight up North Korean news bureau shit right there. The most powerful thing a president has ever done. I'm sorry, burned out his own fucking retinas? What? You're kidding, right? Everybody in the world who isn't you looks at that and goes, what a dumbass. I mean, we all wind up, I can't remember the last name of the character, but that 70s show. Red. Kelso. Yeah, Red Kelso.
No. Red Foreman.
Red Foreman.
Talking about Kelso. Yeah.
Talking about Kelso. What a dumbass.
Yep.
The most powerful thing a president, not the Lend-Lease Act, not,
not the freedom speech.
Not
the Louisiana Purchase.
Not the Louisiana Purchase, not, Emancipation Proclamation, not committing American troops to World War I, not
locking up 125,000 Japanese Americans.
Anything. No.
I stared at the sun, Mama.
I stared at the sun.
You did such a good job staring at that sun.
Yeah. We have to remind small children not to do that.
Yeah, and he has nuclear codes.
And the thing is, the small children generally listen. Yeah, and as you point out so helpfully, he's the one carrying the fucking football.
Yes.
God almighty.
Trump,
carry on.
continuing his rallies despite having won the presidency, declares that he'll shut down the government to get the wall done. Trump goes to the United Nations and states that the U.S. may have no choice but to totally destroy North Korea. He then pressures the NFL to fire players who kneel. Yeah.
Back up. Okay, hold on. I'm sorry. In the rest of the batshit crazy, I had completely forgotten that. He actually said to the United Nations in open session.
Yes.
That the United States may have no choice but to destroy North Korea.
I like a president who tells it like it is instead of has qualifications.
Being diplomatic?
Or having qualifications. Or being able to point out Korea on a map.
Okay, carry on. Sorry.
Speaking of maps, after he pressures the NFL to fire players who kneel, which, by the way, that's against the Constitution, Hurricanes Harvey, Irma, and Maria hit the U.S. in rapid succession. Trump redraws the area affected by the hurricane with a Sharpie.
Okay, back up. That was that long ago?
Uh-huh.
God, I feel like that was last week.
It's weird how old we feel and yet how long ago this stuff was sometimes.
All right.
Trump delays aid to Puerto Rico, mocking its pronunciation, attacking its mayor, and ultimately throwing paper towels to people. The deadliest mass shooting in the United States occurred in Las Vegas, and nobody did anything. California caught fire, burning up all kinds of Northern California real estate, up and down wine country, killing 35. Trump threatens to shut down the media for being critical of him, and nobody does anything. Trump withdrew the U.S. from UNESCO because he said it was anti-Israeli. He also held back a bunch of documents that were supposed to come out about the JFK assassination. The National Climate Assessment said that our world is heating up and that climate change is real. Guess what Trump's response was?
Fake news.
Yeah. Nuh-uh.
Yeah.
There's a guy who held a snowball once inside. There was another mass shooting, this time in a church in Texas. 26 dead, 20 injured. Several men in high positions in Hollywood and entertainment are brought to light as harassers. Andrew Yang announced that he was going to run for president. By the way, it's still 2017 that I'm reading from. Trump reversed a ban on elephant trophies, lead in bullets, and a number of other things that just seemed like decency. Trump also retweeted 3 different ultra-nationalist tweets from Britain. Congress passes a budget with tax cuts for the rich that leads directly to a $1 trillion increase in the national deficit. Trump announced that Jerusalem was now Israel's capital. He also shrank a couple of national parks by over half their size. California was still on fire by December. The White House directed the CDC not to use any scientific words in its budget proposal.
Yep.
Now that's an abbreviated list for 2017. Now 2018, where it starts spinning faster and wobbling harder. 2018, the president brags about the size of his button on Twitter. He called a bunch of countries shitholes. Oh, God, I wish you guys could see Ed's face at this. A glitch in the warning system in Hawaii causes people to be sent a message that there's an incoming ballistic missile attack. People in Hawaii spend about 15 minutes in mortal terror.
Yep. I remember that.
Yeah.
I have friends there who.
Parkland, Florida had a mass shooting which led to several copycat hoaxes, including in my school where we evacuated under threat of a bomb threat and a live shooter threat.
Jesus.
The kids who are seniors now were sophomores then. Teachers went on strike all over the country in right-to-work states.
Yep.
A porn star reported her sexual encounter with the president despite signing a non-disclosure agreement.
Which led to a whole lot of lawsuits back and forth. Yep.
Trump starts a trade war with China that we have no hope of winning. More actors...
And it still hasn't ended.
No. More actors and entertainment moguls are shown to be sexual assaulters. Trump met with the supreme leader of North Korea in a meeting that he, opposite of the facts, bragged was a momentous triumph for the United States.
Yep.
The U.S. said that... Oh, and he also said that they were in love. The U.S. said that it would withdraw from the United Nations Human Rights Council. The Janus case was decided as a blow to unions. Mass arrests start by ICE. Trump praises, then damns, and then praises Putin in Helsinki within 2 days. Northern California catches fire yet again in the campfire, which was started by PG&E neglect. Trump suggests raking as a solution.
Yep, like the Finns do.
Kavanaugh is proposed as a Supreme Court justice. He is accused of sexual assault by Christine Blasey Ford. She testified to it calmly and measured. Kavanaugh raged. Nobody did anything, and he's now a Supreme Court justice. There's a mass shooting at the Tree of Life Synagogue, killing 11. Operation Faithful Patriot is underway, when the American soldiers are sent to the U.S.-Mexico border, despite the Posse Comitatus Act of 1878 that prohibits law enforcement by the military.
Yep.
There's a mass shooting in L.A. that killed 13 that I didn't even remember. And the Dow is at its highest point ever.
Which is all that matters to the president.
Now, that's an abbreviated list of 2018. Here's 2019.
Ugh.
A polar vortex hits the United States, a once-in-a-lifetime occurrence. Remember, just a couple years prior, there had been a giant heat
Polar
wave?
vortex.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
This is 2019. Trump pulls the United States out of another nuclear limitation treaty. Mass shooting in Aurora, Illinois, kills 6. Tons of tornadoes throughout the Midwest. Kentucky outlawed bestiality, finally.
Well, okay, see, so there are bright spots.
Exactly. Okay, so yeah. I think we need a commercial break.
Yeah.
Let's go to commercial. I'll
Let's
see
do
you on the
that.
other side.
All right.
Hello, Geek Timers. This is producer George, interrupting this podcast to let you know that we have space available. This space could be used to promote your product, book, event, group, even wish a special someone happy birthday. If you're interested in using this space, please contact us on Twitter via private message at Geek History Time.
And we're back.
That break might not have been long enough.
No, it's rare that the commercial break is the stability that we need.
Yeah, I don't have enough beer in my fridge to deal with that right now.
So, is there anything you want to say about that list before I bring it back around to the culture?
Just that, when back in 17, it was a really big deal having folks on Twitter and on everywhere on social media, reminding us daily, this is not normal. Mm-hmm. This is not normal. And, having it all read out in a litany like that,
mm-hmm.
In the last episode, I talked about, the surreality of the times
mm-hmm.
in which the show has made a comeback.
Yes.
And I don't think there is any better evidence of that for the current time than
mm-hmm.
that list. Like,
I agree.
The extent to which so much of that is so completely topsy-turvy, and like if you had submitted a script
yep.
to anybody back in 2000
mm-hmm.
talking about any of that, they'd have looked at you and said, "I'm sorry, no, we can't do this, but we're not gonna be able to get sponsors for this because nobody will believe it."
Well, and the best part is like it would have started with, okay, there's a guy who's going to be on a TV show to make himself look like he's richer and smarter than he is, and he'll be the one who ends up being president about a decade after that. And they would hand it back to you going, oh, nice try on making an allegory, a ridiculous allegory to Ronald Reagan. But we've already been through that.
We've already done that. And the funny thing is, have you, you talk about the TV show trying to make himself look smarter and whatever. Have you read the accounts from the producers of that show about the experience of trying to produce The Apprentice?
No. Give us a capsule.
Well, the short form of it is they would spend all the amount of time that they had to spend filming,
mm-hmm.
the competitions and filming the interviews with all the people on the show and all that.
Mm-hmm.
And then they would go in and, based on the way things had gone,
mm-hmm.
the producers would, think, okay, we're looking at this is probably who's going to get fired.
Mm-hmm.
And then Trump would just randomly fire people. And all of the editing they had done to lead up to what they had expected to be the ending, they had to run back and recut everything. And this didn't happen once. This happened repeatedly.
Wow.
Because he wasn't paying any fucking attention.
No, God, no.
Like,
yeah.
And it was, part of what I remember reading about it was them saying, oh yeah, no, he is functionally illiterate.
Mm-hmm.
Like whether he's able to read or not, he doesn't.
Mm-hmm.
He has the attention span of a particularly agitated toddler.
Mm-hmm.
And he's there's no predicting what the hell he's going to do because he's not paying any attention and he's a danger to himself and everyone around him, basically. And they had to cut this show to make him look like the business tycoon.
Wow. Well, it worked because people voted based on that.
Yeah, and if you go back and look at the show, I got to say it's a real testament to the producers managing to do that with whatever they had for B-roll.
Mm-hmm.
Because the couple of episodes of it I ever watched had a coherent through line of, all right, this is the person who's kind of in trouble and this is how this is going to go, and they wind up being the one who goes home. And it's like, how did you craft that?
Wow.
At the 11th hour,
Yeah.
So we could we could spend multiple episodes just going off, I'm sure, on how incredibly fit the man is for civic dog catcher, let alone president of the United States. But
time will tell.
So
after Kentucky outlaws bestiality, Twilight Zone hit the air. And it's been picked up for a second season. And we now have streaming platforms, more than 3 networks, and we have asynchronous entertainment. But, we are living in the times, so we will have to actually make prudent predictions. So I say let's look at the pattern overall and see what prediction is most prudent. So in 1959, you had an increasing destabilization obviating itself in the American psyche.
Yeah.
The Soviet Union had the H-bomb. Cuba had a communist revolution. America had been at war with another communist country through its proxy earlier in the decade, Korea. Bomb shelters were coming onto the market. Like, there was a market for that. Government was creating and getting increasingly paranoid, or increasing paranoia. They were questioning all sorts of citizens on their basic loyalty, and humanity was beginning to go out into space. All of this was a huge source of anxiety and worry and mistrust. Okay? There was a level of absurdity. You call it surrealism. I think it's actually more absurd. But also, more importantly, there's a level of fear. And then a show comes out safely and cleverly reflecting our fears back to us through science fiction in half-hour chunks.
Okay.
It never caught on with the majority of people because people chose to use their entertainment as an escape, not as a reflection. Interestingly, what was really, really popular around the same time? Candid camera.
Really?
Yeah, which is essentially reality television.
Well, yeah, it is. I had thought Candid Camera was later. I always think of Candid Camera as being a 70s thing.
Well, it existed then too, but it existed contemporaneously with the later part of the Twilight Zone.
Really?
Yeah,
I still had thought it was a decade later than that.
To my knowledge, it was because it came out in 1960.
Really?
With Alan Funt. Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, escape is a fair thing to want when you are faced with existential terror the whole time. And all of this is at a time when a president won office easily, partly due to his novel use of television to highlight his good qualities and hide his deficiencies. Eisenhower was the first presidential candidate. A lot of people say it was Kennedy because he dolled up for the camera and he recognized how to use the camera. But Eisenhower ran a series of ads where he would be looking down and to the left they directed him, look down and to the left with your answers and answer in no more than 30 seconds at a time or a minute at the time. And so then they would have people, and he would read policy answers. He's like, nobody's asking me these questions. And like, no, don't worry. We'll have people to ask you those questions. And then they plucked people out to look like voters to look like the kind of voters that they're reaching for that particular question, and they would ask the question, and he would answer the question, and it was cut in such a way to make it look like he was answering them directly. That was television. He did that very, very well. Yeah. So you have a presidential, a television president. Existential terror from without in the form of atomic war and the propped up idea on both sides that the other side was just a hair's breadth from wiping us all out. I told you about that last episode. Mm-hmm. And existential terror from within in the form of a government hounding its citizens to insist on their loyalty, and the very narrow definition of patriotism that was, quite frankly, one of jingoism more than it was loyalty to the ideals of this nation.
Yeah.
Combine that with uncertainty, and the future is an uncertain thing, of course. Okay. More to the point, combine that with space, the most unsure enterprise that there is.
Nicely done.
Thank you for that. So that's what happened in 59 to bring up the Twilight Zone. It came up, failed commercially, but the urge to reflect wasn't there, even though the writer's urge to reflect society was. In 85, the culture is again facing destabilization in its psyche. America is negotiating with the USSR in very dire terms. And the threat of nuclear war, which had in some ways become a part of the culture, was also making itself felt again. America had been at war a couple years earlier, although this time not nearly to... In this time, it was to make up for the previous wars. The Cold War was in all the movies. Okay, Rocky went and won the Cold War for us. Yeah. So did Rambo. The government was not to be trusted, and yet most Americans clung to the same government they didn't trust. The executive of which was selling weapons to our stated enemies to give money to a group that was not our stated enemy over and above the objections of Congress to get around the Boland Amendment.
Yeah.
Even more, they were also bringing drugs into the country, the government was, creating an existential crisis from within, as well as a constitutional crisis that people would rather ignore. The people's sense of existential terror had grown from without, the Cold War, the rise of terrorism, and from within, a government that was literally killing its own people, ignoring those deaths, and contributing to a perceived rise of crime. Then a show comes back, safely and cleverly reflecting our fears back to us through science fiction in half-hour chunks. It never caught on with the majority of the people because people chose to use their entertainment as an escape, not a reflection. A few years later, America's Funniest Home Videos came out. So we keep wanting to escape by watching lesser versions of ourselves. And not even written, creative, artistic lesser versions of ourselves, captured lesser versions of ourselves.
Yeah.
All of this is at a time when a former actor is president. I would say that escape is a fair thing to want when you're faced with existential terror the whole time.
Yeah.
So now it's 2002.
Okay. Nothing.
Actually, I did write something this time. This time, I knew it would piss you off if I did it twice.
Yeah.
So the culture is, yet again, facing destabilization in its psyche. And this time it's acutely felt as we'd suffered an actual existential threat on some levels on 9/11. It's a very uncertain time, following a time when we'd bombed the shit out of a country for over 70 days a few years earlier, Yugoslavia. We didn't know when or if the next attack was coming. We've talked about this on prior episodes. And our federal government told us go to Disneyland and that they would handle it for us. Security. Don't worry about the increasing paranoia in the government and it's exhibiting again willingly. And by the way, more and more people are being imprisoned due to stronger laws against crime, swelling our imprisoned population, and further villainizing large swaths of the population. Meanwhile, our government is kidnapping random folks from far away and keeping them in secret prisons all throughout the world. And there's an existential terror from without, terrorism, and an existential terror from within, terrorism.
Not to put too fine a point on it.
Yeah. Also, we don't know what the government is going to do. There's a tremendous amount of uncertainty there as well. And the desire in entertainment is, again, escape, numbness, not reflection. In fact, the entertainment we would come to consume for the next several years was increasingly violent, increasingly fractured psyche, and increasingly gray. So think about what was big. 24, The Shield, any number of its clones. Gritty, this, gritty, gritty, right? Mm-hmm. And also Lost. And also Heroes. Now, people will say what they will about them. Oh, yeah, Battlestar Galactica.
Which we've talked about.
Yes, at wonderful length. It was really well done. But so gritty or so Lost or so dissociative disorder, or why not all three?
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm looking
Life
at you,
on
Baltar.
Mars.
Yeah.
Which originally started in Britain, but then got adapted.
What's Life on Mars? I thought you were talking about the mission to Mars.
No, I'm talking about the TV short run TV series Life on Mars.
Oh, I remember that.
And the conceit of it is that a cop from 2000 and whatever winds up getting struck by a car.
Oh.
And the next thing he knows, he wakes up and it's 1972. And he's a detective in the same police department he had been in previously. Mm-hmm. And he keeps seeing flashes from his life in the future while he gets pulled into trying to investigate a murder mystery in 1972, 74, whatever year it was. And the show highlights the very dramatic changes in police culture from the 70s until the modern era. In that, like, the British version, which is superior for
usually is. Yeah.
Yeah, it's the original, so it has that going for it. But in both versions, but especially in the British version, he winds up witnessing shocking levels of police brutality and police violence that, really, really trouble him. And it's business as usual for everybody in, 70 whatever, and a casual level of corruption, low level,
right.
not like straight up taking bribes, but walking into a place and getting free beers,
right,
kind of stuff. And you talk about it's deeply gritty and it shows it's deeply morally gray, and at the same time dissociative.
Yeah. Why not all three?
Yeah, and then depending on which version of the show, the ending is either a complete downer, or you feel cheated that it isn't a downer because,
Well, that sounds like Lost.
Yeah, pretty much. It's of the same vintage. So yeah, it was speaking of the same aspects of the mass subconscious.
Yeah. Well, so you know what else is really popular right around the same time? Reality television. Yeah, actually, there's competition shows, Survivor, as well as I forget a few others.
Real Housewives.
Yeah. Also, rich and pretty heiresses running around doing nothing and being obnoxious.
Oh,
The Simple Life.
The Simple Life. Oh,
They're
Lord.
the ones.
Which manages to combine the vacuousness of heiresses with they managed to both make Nicole Richie and Paris Hilton look stupid.
Yes.
And the ordinary people they're interacting with look like a bunch of idiot hicks.
Yep.
It's like nobody winds up coming out of that show looking good.
Again, we would rather not look at artful stuff. And if we do, we want it to just reinforce the violence that we're kind of becoming okay with being a country that does it. At least in the 80s, we lied about it.
Yeah.
I remember there was I took a class on the history of the American war in Vietnam, and the teacher said something to the effect about the Cultural War, that the baby boomers at the time still wanted all the material success, but they just wanted to have fun beforehand. Mm-hmm. And so they didn't see the need to get married to the first person they had sex with. It was mom and dad were screwing. It doesn't mean we're going to, we're living together and we're screwing, and that's it. And the parents said, well, you could at least have the decency to be hypocritical about it. So,
Yeah.
So it's always stuck with me. But we would rather look at bad versions of ourselves. And then there was a TV show that comes out a little bit later than that, where a submoronic lead is in a position of decision making and exploiting the work of other people in a boardroom and in a business setting.
Are you talking about Shark Tank?
No. There's another one called they did a version of it called My Big Fat Obnoxious Boss, but that was a spoof of it on Fox TV, which had also come up with Who Wants to Marry a Millionaire?
Right.
And then they came up with My Big Fat Obnoxious Fiancé, which was actually a work. It was so much fun. But no, I'm talking about the one that My Big Fat Obnoxious Boss spoofed. The Apprentice, I think. Yeah.
Yeah.
So then a show comes back, safely and cleverly reflecting our fears back to us through science fiction in half-hour chunks. Nobody wanted it. Reflection was not the desire. Machismo fantasy and catharsis absolutely was.
Yeah.
An interesting shift in what we wanted as a culture when faced with existential terror the whole time. Then in 2019, the culture is still, and even more, facing a full-on shaking apart from its foundations and ideals. Because pendulum doesn't swing back equally, it finds new centers. And it's been creeping farther and farther toward insanity for quite some time. In 2019, we have a federal government that is, wait for it, attacking the federal government and destabilizing itself.
Yep.
And it's not just one branch, but multiple. And the institutions are under existential threat. The paranoia is increasing, and the gaslighting has gone through the roof. And we are witnessing the death throes of the system that has, for a long time, been showing its ass and exposing its fault lines for generations. It remains to be seen if a show can come back safely and cleverly reflecting our fears back to us through science fiction in half-hour chunks and actually be accepted. Currently, we're all on lockdown in a once-in-4 lifetimes happening. And now more than ever, our entertainment choices show us about ourselves. And people are going apeshit for a guy who raises tigers, which is the 21st century version of the Beverly Hillbillies.
Oh, dude.
At a time, yeah.
I need to interject here and let our audience understand, because you all know, even if you haven't watched the show, you know who Damian's talking about. He's talking about Joe Schreibvogel, who likes to go by the name Joe Exotic. Mm-hmm. And of course, he's talking about Tiger King,
who is now the Democratic presumptive nominee, right?
Yes.
Joe Exotic? Yeah.
Joe Exotic.
Yeah.
No, Diamond Joe Biden. Thank you.
Gotcha.
Diamond Joe Biden with a sweet Trans Am. I wish I could remember. I think it was The Onion who came up with that character back during the Obama presidency, Diamond Joe Biden. But anyway, what our audience, all five of you, need to know is that Damian has not watched Tiger King.
Nope.
And is staunchly refusing to do so. Mm-hmm. Which, I respect that choice. I tried to do that, and my wife won't let me because she watched it all the way through and was like, no, babe, you only watched the first 2 episodes and then you were there for the last episode. No. You need to watch the rest of it because you need to understand how completely batshit crazy all of these people are. And she's not wrong.
Well,
like at all.
now, I will point out that I'm not refusing to watch it out of a moral stance, but because I don't want to pay for Netflix again. Like, I canceled it once I got Disney Plus because I've got ESPN and Hulu in that package deal. And I'm like, I've got those, and I've got another streaming service and my wrestling streaming service. I don't need to be paying $60. What am I, getting cable?
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. So, okay.
But
right.
yeah, I'm also remaining willfully ignorant of it because I don't have any goddamn interest in watching people who remind me of the folks that I used to live near in Florida.
Well,
I lived near them already. I'm done. I did my time.
Yeah, no, I understand that. And I rather agree with you, but again, I like being married.
Right.
And so,
Yeah. And when I was married, I watched more reality TV.
Yeah.
And now I watch pro wrestling, which again, I'm not better than anybody.
It's kind of the spiritual successor to reality TV.
Predecessor,
spiritual ancestor is what I meant.
Yeah.
And
I would say only in as much as carnivals are as well, which was very much what the Learning Channel turned into when they started having to add the question mark, the Learning Channel.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm not better for my choices. I'm not better than anybody for having made these choices.
Yeah, and I
it's just not a genre I've ever dug either.
Yeah, but yeah.
In fact, I want to point this out. When I was coming up in the early 2000s, I watched My Big Fat Obnoxious Fiancé and My Big Fat Obnoxious Boss, both of which were a work. They were not reality TV. They were contrived, but the people who were on it thought they were on reality TV. That compelled me, but reality TV has never compelled me. The wrestling goes deep.
You really are, you really are a wrestling fan.
Yes,
because the art of the work, is a thing, man.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So So we're saying all of this in order to get to, what do we think is the prudent prediction?
Oh, I've got more though.
Oh, okay. All right. Okay.
So we're watching, everybody's going gaga for the Tiger guy.
Yeah.
When a former reality show personality is the fucking president. We absolutely have existential terror, though I don't really think there's much terror from without anymore. Though our president has convinced people that hordes of Mexicans and Muslims are coming from everywhere to have anchor abortions. So,
I love the way you put that.
Yeah.
Here's what I'm going to say. I think if you live on the coast, there isn't a perception of an outside threat.
Right.
If you live in the middle of the country, there is. Yeah. And I think that is,
however unreal, that's there.
I'm saying the perception is there.
Yes.
And I think that is a new wrinkle in the pattern. And I'll put a pin in that for now, and we'll come back to that. Keep going.
Okay. Well, from within, the terror is absolutely very clearly there.
Oh, yeah.
And from within, I mean in the form of an actual virus. Existential terror from deep within. So, what is the future of the Twilight Zone? History has shown us already what's likely to happen. So, I want to hear from you. Do you feel free to take the pin out? I am done with my TED Talk on the Twilight Zone.
Okay. I think that we are in there are very significant parallels, and your thesis about a time of paranoia and existential dread and what have you, I think is it's prima facie. You can't really argue against it. with that being said, I think there is possibly a greater chance for this reboot to succeed for a couple of reasons.
Mm-hmm.
The biggest one being that, and we've talked about this before, that it used to be there were only 3 TV stations.
Right.
In 1960, there were only 3 TV stations. In 1985, there were still mostly 3 TV stations, but if you had cable, there were another 15.
And Fox came in 1986, if I recall.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so then
So
there
it became
were 4.
the 4th. Yeah.
Yeah. And now, like you just said, I don't need Netflix. I already have Hulu and Disney
Right.
and ESPN and whatever all the hell.
Amazon. Yeah.
Amazon.
And WWE
And-
Network. Don't forget.
And yes, of course. Sorry. I don't want to overlook that one because that's crucial,
Mm-hmm.
both for you and for anybody else trying to understand your psyche. But we now live in an era where Netflix or CBS All Access
Mm-hmm.
are now capable of being viable commercially. Maybe
Yes.
not roaring successes, but they're capable of being viable
Mm-hmm.
commercially by targeting a niche audience
Yes.
and playing to a niche audience. You can make money by doing a niche series. Like, how many people
Mm-hmm.
are what percentage of the population are going to be really, really deeply engrossed in a fictionalized account of the life of the British royal family since the accession of Elizabeth II.
That's a really good point. Like, I mean, we're talking in my pun show, Capital Punishment. We're talking about growing our digital audience, and we don't need to have millions.
No.
A couple thousand is fine.
Yeah.
I mean, I want millions.
Well,
but,
of course. Who doesn't?
But you're right though. The niche is going to be niche. And that's really, really an important point.
And so I think, do I think we're going to see this iteration of the Twilight Zone become a massive commercial success that everybody talks about? Probably not.
But it doesn't have to anymore either.
But in order for it to be considered a success by the bean counters,
Mm-hmm.
it doesn't need to be anymore because the paradigm has shifted.
Mm-hmm.
So we have that going on.
True.
And then, beyond that, there is a really dramatic also paradigm shift in our Zeitgeist as a nation. We now have, in a great many ways, our popular culture is reflective of our political division.
Mm-hmm.
In that, I mean, like right now, everybody's talking about Tiger King because we're all, locked in the house with no place to go. And like, oh my God, these people are fucking nuts. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
But, think about how many people are watching The Crown
Mm-hmm.
and where those people primarily are. And then think about who is still watching a lot more network TV,
Mm-hmm.
watching a lot more of the reality shows, watching a lot more of that kind of stuff. There is a definite, again, niches being a thing.
Yep.
To a large extent, there are broad divisions in those niches between blue niches and red niches.
Yes, there are.
And I think for whatever reason, and I don't want to get into theorizing why, because that could potentially become pejorative and not the kind of thing I want to engage in. But I think people who are interested in the kind of subversive
Mm-hmm.
and reflective and social justice kind of things that the Twilight Zone has done are going to be your coastal, blue state, urban kind of people.
Mm-hmm. City,
and your
yeah.
City folk.
Yeah.
And the folks who are going to be more interested in escapist reality TV kind of stuff. And again, broad brush, because
Saves time.
But I think you're going to see a lot more red state, a lot more rural folks in that category.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think the very political circumstances that have made the Twilight Zone relevant to us now might actually help it be viable. Again,
Mm-hmm.
I'm not going to put money down on it turning into a big, broad spectrum, popular kind of thing.
Sure.
But I think we're in a set of circumstances where it doesn't need as big an audience to be viable. And I think it could be viable.
Mm-hmm.
If of course the writing is good and they don't wind up relying too heavily on, remember that episode that ... and just
Right.
retread stuff. I mean, if they can capture the spirit of the original series
Mm-hmm.
and do that kind of stuff consistently,
Mm-hmm.
then yeah, I think there are enough people, on our side of the aisle and with our over intellectual kind of predilections that they can have. I think they can be viable. I think it can go for several seasons at least.
Yeah, I think we've gotten into this world of the democratization of our art now, where it's funny because it is corporatized to a greater degree than it ever was on some levels.
Mm-hmm.
And on other levels, it's still a democratization of that corporatism, because now you have multiple points of access. Now you have a lot more different stories being told, and they've figured out how to commodify the niche. Instead of saying we want that big third of the pie, now they're like, no, we want this 16th of the pie and these two parts that are 3 seconds and all this, and it's still viable that way. I think that you're absolutely right. So I think in some ways you're seeing a generalization of a formerly ghettoized genre potentially by virtue of the over-commodification of a democratizing art. It's a really weird time.
It
But
really is.
I would also point out that one of the reasons that if it will be successful, one of the reasons that it will be, and I'm not convinced that it will be, but just because I've seen it happen 3 times already. Like, I did the research,
Yeah, no, I get it.
But I think one of the reasons that it would be successful is because it's such a horrifying time that we're living.
Mm-hmm.
And people want to you ever burn the roof of your mouth on pizza and you get that little blister and you just tongue the hell out of it all day long?
Oh yeah, or when you're eating chips and you stab yourself and you just can't stop
do 1 hit point
worrying.
of damage.
Yeah, and you can't stop worrying at it. Yeah.
So I think that in a world where you have that sore, you're going to want to keep tonguing it.
Yeah.
So that's what I think would keep it from getting shelved again after 2 to 5 years.
Yeah. So. Well, and again, I want to stress that I'm not saying I'm predicting that it will be viable. Right. I'm just saying I think now it possibly has the best chance it ever has had.
That's true. Yeah.
For the reasons I listed and what you just said is like the extremity of the batshit crazy that we're living through right now is so great, and especially right now with a literal can't see it threat that literally has us all huddling in our homes. I think if the writers and the producers can figure out how to work with that and how to play on that, effectively, I think they can potentially capture enough lightning in a bottle to keep it going.
Yeah, you don't have to be a universal success to be successful now.
Yeah.
So, well, bleak as it is, that is the Twilight Zone episode.
Yep.
It's it's a sad tale at the end of the day. Twilight zoning through the terror.
Mm-hmm.
So, are you reading anything for funsies during our quarantine?
I think, well, I mentioned a couple of episodes ago that I finally did actually pick up Dune again. I haven't had a chance to read anything on it in the last couple of days because of administrative work stuff. But I am working my way through that, and it is interesting how much a story that is set in the impossibly far future can be so remarkably dated in so many ways.
I remember reading A Handmaid's Tale, going, "Wow, this is third wave feminism." Like it was clear. Like I was like, "This was written in '85," and then I turned to the publisher. It was like, "Oh, I was right." It was, I was within a year or two.
Yeah. Well, yeah, because I mean, it is very clearly third wave feminism, and I think that is both one of its limiting factors and one of its great strengths.
Yes.
I can't say that it's necessarily one of Herbert's strengths in Dune that I can look at it and go, this was very clearly written down in the 60s.
Right.
Because there's a lot of stuff that he has a preoccupation with that is just so much of that era, in so many ways. And then, the gender politics in it is,
of course,
like, wow.
Yeah.
So that's all in pursuit of an upcoming episode here.
I look forward to it
soon. Yeah. So yeah, what is your? I mean, we've kind of already hit it, but just real fast while we're on our way out, what is your takeaway from having done all of this research?
I think perhaps I gravitated toward the Twilight Zone, the black and white, because I grew up under the color. Okay. I really appreciate color Twilight Zone from '85, and that caused me to reach back to '59, and I fell in love with that. And neither the 2002 version nor the 2019 version have held any interest for me to even begin to start. And I find it interesting that those have both come up at a time where I was an actualized agent of my own life.
Okay.
And I'm not interested in exploring them, whereas I was very much interested in exploring the ones that occurred either prior to me existing, and honestly, like my mom was born in '56, so it was when she was 3 years old that came out, So prior to me existing, or prior to, me being double digits even. So there's an interesting intellectual thing that's happening there to me, where I want to watch things that are time capsules of a time that I had no say in my world. And I have no interest in watching the ones that existed at a time where I did have a say in my world. So apparently the mirror I like to look at is not as reflective of me as it is reflective of something that's next to me. And I find that to be an interesting, I'm not going to call it cowardice in any way, but an interesting reticence on my part to watch the stuff that came out at a time where I was able to affect change in my world.
Okay.
So the reflections are, I've done this many a time, actually. I do the safety of the historian, and where I'm just like, I'm just going to wait for 10 years and then I'll start researching it, which I've ceased to be that in a lot of ways. But when it comes to the Twilight Zone, apparently I'm still willing to do that. So I just kind of found it interesting that that's what I gravitated toward. Now, that being said, there was way more originality and pathos in both of those than you could possibly have in a third or fourth generation version of a thing in terms of originality.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that would probably be it. I do find it interesting that it doesn't get talked about nearly as much, which is the Outer Limits. And there were a couple other shows that came out in the 80s that were similar too, but Outer Limits rebooted itself in the 90s. And I found that recently on the Amazon, and I started enjoying that. And it does not have the same feel as Twilight Zone in a way that I can't put my finger on it.
Well, I think I can tell you what it is.
Oh, cool.
The Outer Limits was, I want to say it Twilight Zone came along first. Twilight Zone was CBS. And the writers and producers at, I don't remember which network was the Outer Limits, saw that and went, they're really doing some funky stuff, man. And the Outer Limits is what you get when you take some of the ideas out of the Twilight Zone and you pull nearly all of the social subversion. When you take the subversion and the moral mirror out of it.
Yeah, it seemed a lot more monstery, alien-y, and therefore further removed.
Yeah, it's monstery, it's alien-y. It is if the Twilight Zone was written by somebody who was trying to do escapism as opposed to social commentary science fiction.
There you go. Okay. That would explain why the second time it came around, it lasted for 7 years.
Yeah.
From 95 to 02.
Yeah, because it was escapism, which is generally a lot easier to make commercially successful.
Much more acceptable, yeah.
Yeah. And I think that's also the reason why, for me, as, a science fiction nerd all my life, the Outer Limits always kind of felt like that guy who says, oh man, let me tell you about this story I wrote. And he's really wrapped up in how clever his twist ending is.
Okay.
And you're like, no, that's really okay. Yeah, that is, and you can't help but recognize that is really clever. But it doesn't have the kind of emotional hit.
Doesn't have the gravitas.
It doesn't have the gravitas, and it doesn't leave you going, oh shit, dude.
Yeah, it's an exercise in technique, not in pathos.
Yeah. And an episode like when the monsters come to Maple Street, or what's the one with Burgess Meredith where his glasses break in the last?
I was going to say there's 4 of those with him, but this one, Time Enough at Last, which is my favorite.
Time Enough at Last is a classic, twist ending O. Henry kind of thing. And it could so easily be cliche, but because of everything that gets bound up in it, and everything that it comments on and everything that it reflects on, it is one of the most powerful episodes of television ever.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
And the Outer Limits and the Outer Limits regularly did really clever, I didn't see that coming, but it's inevitable kind of twist endings.
Right.
But they never left you gutted like that.
True.
And so, I mean, that's because the whole time we've been talking about this, I've been thinking about the Outer Limits. And hearing you talk about your experience watching the older series and the new ones, I realized I finally had that crystallize in my head. And I think that's going to be my takeaway, is that their science fiction has an innate level of power in it.
Yeah.
because you can do stuff with allegory and symbolism. And, well, I'm not talking about race. I'm talking about fill in the blank. I'm not talking about nuclear weapons. I'm telling a story about, this starship or whatever, and you can then use that bit of sleight of hand to do some really powerful stuff.
Oh, yeah.
And at the same time, you don't have to. And you can tell a Monster of the Week story. And everybody, and everybody winds up seeing everything that gets done in the genre as being in the same category as the Monster of the Week story.
Right.
And on the one hand, that's infuriating.
Mm-hmm.
But on the other hand, without that, the other stuff wouldn't necessarily have the same level of allegorical power.
Yeah.
And it's a weird, poetic kind of thing that we've touched on in other places. But I think here it really crystallizes when you look at the differences between those two series.
Sure.
And then you look at some of the other kind of knockoff series, like you remember Monsters, Tales from the Dark Side.
My buddy Johnny talked about that with me, and we watched the intro to it. Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean they were all very much in the same kind of vein. And some of them were like a couple of episodes of Tales from the Dark Side freaked the hell out of me. I gotta tell you.
Well, there's Tales from the Crypt too. I mean, there was Bordello of Blood. I mean, there's all kinds of that kind of stuff, kind of all folded up.
Yeah, and I think all of those, in one way or another, are a response to the Twilight Zone. But they don't have, like you say, they don't have the same gravitas because they're not dealing with allegory. They're just telling a monster story. They're just doing.
Yeah. There's no humanity to their monsters. And there's no monstrosity to their humans.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Precisely.
Yeah.
So.
Well, yeah, I would say Twilight Zone is a classic. I think it's something that everybody should watch. It usually comes up once a year, twice a year on some sort of network marathon.
Yeah.
Over a holiday. Just sit down with a bowl of popcorn and watch it. It's great stuff.
Yeah.
And also it tells us about ourselves. So
Definitely.
All right. Well, why don't you plug yourself on social media?
All right. If you want to try to yell at me about how wrong I am about the gravitas of The Outer Limits, you can find me at EH Blaylock on Twitter. You can find me at Mr. Blaylock on Instagram. And then you can find both of us collectively, if you want to yell at both of us at once.
Or sponsor us.
Or throw money at us.
Yes.
That'd be awesome. You can find us at Geek History Time on Twitter. And Damian, where can they find you?
You can find me at Duh Harmony. There's 2 H's in there, both on the Twitter and on the Instagram. You could find me on twitch.tv at 8:30 p.m. every Friday night. Twitch.tv/Capital Puns for our weekly digital pun tournament, Capital Punishment. It's been going almost 4 years now. We've moved to a digital version because we can't gather.
Because the plague walks abroad.
Yes. And also you can find me starting this coming Sunday, which this coming Sunday to those of us who are recording live right now. But every Sunday thereafter, you can find me on twitch.tv/Calling It in the Ring with my partner, Johnny Taylor. Capital Punishment is a pun tournament where myself and Daniel Humbarger crack-wise make puns on certain topics. Calling It in the Ring is where my partner Johnny Taylor and I we talk about professional wrestling matches as we are watching them together on Twitch, and both of us have a deep love of comedy and of wrestling. And of course, you can find me right here on Geek History of Time. If you could do us a favor, please rate, subscribe, review, give us 5 stars if you think we earned it. Even if you don't think we earned it, I mean, it's not like we're doing it shirtless. So please give us those likes. We were number 14 in New Zealand, and we dropped to number 44. And I want to at least get back up to number 30. So please rate, subscribe, and review this show. If you listen to the commercial, throw us some money, throw some shekels our way for our hard work, because this, I believe, is episode 54, which means we have over a year's worth of weekly content for people, which is pretty exciting considering that, you know, we started this quite some time ago. Anyway,
indeed.
For A Geek History of Time, I am Damian Harmony.
And I'm Ed Blaylock. And until the next time we see you, be safe, stay inside, and wash your fucking hands.